Southern culture kind of gets demonized these days.
They're taking everything down, and it's like they're replacing it with stuff for Black History Month and any kind of thing like that. And I'm like, I'm fine with them having that. That's history, too. But why do we have to eradicate, the history that we also know?
This is significant to me in terms of what you do, and that is you help preserve not only a culture but a history that's there. Because when you talk about Hoppin' John and fried cornbread and things like that, this goes back generations, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is stuff that's been passed down to you. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. Forgive my voice. Allergies, Texas allergies have settled in. I didn't know if I was getting a cold or whatever, but yeah, they settled in. And apparently you have to exercise the muscles if you're going to sing songs publicly. And I haven't done any music shows since mid-December, and we did a couple of big ones Friday and Saturday night this weekend, and I exercised that muscle. And so here we are with some hoarseness in my voice. So I ask everybody out there listening, watching, pray for me. I need this voice. I need it. It helps to pay the bills and things like that. I'm excited today, man. We're gonna have a good show, and I want to remind you guys before we climb into it that we're doing the audio only podcasts that are released early Monday morning, and then again on Wednesday morning. There's no video for them, at least not yet. We'll see. I'm twisting their arm. We'll see what happens with that. But I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest, and so we're calling them To The Point, and they're only 25 minutes long. We get right into the headlines. You get my take, and you walk away. I don't know that you're more educated or wiser, but you at least are entertained a little bit by it. So check them out, the To The Point episodes. They're wherever you find the Chad Prather Show, wherever podcasts are offered. Please, while you're there, leave me a rating and review. 5 stars is what I deserve, and I want a good review. I'm going to give a good review today. You guys know I'm a book guy. I'm always recommending books. But I am a collector. Little known fact, Scheider, people don't know this. I'm a collector of cookbooks. I got a ton of them. And one of my favorite cookbook authors is a lady by the name of Stacy Lyn Harris. And she's got a new book coming out right here, Love Language of the South. I'm excited about this one. And when I talked to Stacy, I told her, I said, I think you're the reason why my weight consistently fluctuates about 15 pounds. It goes up and then it comes down. Then I read another Stacy Lyn Harris cookbook and it goes back up again. So I'm going to get on to her today, and she is my guest on the program, Stacy Lyn Harris. How are you, girl?
I am so good. I am so glad to be here. Yes, this is going to be so much fun. You're one of my very favorite.
We're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
I say the same thing about you. I love it. You and I connected, I guess it's been 5 or 6 years ago on Matt and Kendall Hagee's program over in San Antonio. One of those just kind of divine encounters when I ran into you, and your daughter was there that day. And I think you and your husband Scott have like 900 kids at this point.
It's just 7, but yes, it's like 900 at times. Uh-huh.
Do you ever confuse their names, like when you start yelling for one of them and they just
yeah, I do. It's and then we named all of our boys H names, so it's like whatever comes out. It's just and I'll go through the list until I get it right. So yeah. My older brother Tommy. When my mother was mad at us, he became a mixture of Chad and Tommy. He became Chommy, and I became Tad. So it was a mixture, and my mother still calls me every grandchild's name. She never gets my name right. So yes,
you got this new book out. I want to get into it in a minute. You've been the host of the Sporting Chef TV show. You've got, I think, 6 books now? This is your 6th cookbook that's come out?
Something like that, yeah. I mean, I mean, it just depends on. I have a little preserving 101 book that it's like a handbook. So you can count that though.
Well, these are substantial books, and I want to get into it in a minute because our audience is going to love this, and they're gonna love you if they're not already familiar with you. But before we do that, while I've got everybody on the hook here. You mentioned your sons all have H names, and I was on the phone with one of your sons just 2 weeks ago. Tell everybody what he's doing and what it is that he's doing that's making you real nervous these days.
Oh my gosh, it is so hard for moms. But he's running for U.S. Congress, and so there's a new district that opened up. They decided to add an extra district to Alabama to make it more fair, which I think is kind of unconstitutional. But we could get into that if you want to. But anyway, but that's okay because it's open. And so there's no incumbent. So a lot of people have been running for it. I think there's some people out of the race now. There's maybe 7 that have ended up, still there. They had a debate, a televised debate. It hasn't aired yet. But, anyway, I went to the supposedly live event last week, and I got a migraine sitting there going, oh my gosh. But he did fine. He did excellent. And then he had a speech that night, and just not knowing what he's going to say, not having control. And I didn't realize how much of a control person I actually am. And I really, really like control, and I do not have it anymore. So not just with him. I mean, everybody's doing fine. It's just, wow.
Yeah.
I
can relate to that. Mm-hmm. I was talking to my 20-year-old daughter today via text message, and I was, every now and then I'll see one of my kids, one of their videos will pop up on one of their TikToks or something like that, and I can see it in their eyes. Something is wrong. Something's bothering them. So immediately I said, "Listen, I want you to talk to me. I'll get on a plane. I'll start driving right now." But imagine the frustration that my mother has of having to watch me do this show, and she never knows what in the world's going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah,
so
I can't even imagine. I could not imagine being your mother. No, I want to meet her. I think she's my new hero.
Yeah. Let me tell you, she's put up with a lot in her life, and she is something else. Well, and your son Hampton Harris. I mean, if you're in Alabama, if you're down in that southwest district of Alabama, he's the guy. I've spent some time with him on the phone, and just trust me, guys. If you're listening to this show and you're down there in Alabama, that part of Alabama, and that's your district, it's a new district. Vote for him because he's your guy. Promise you, I've fully vetted this guy. And he's a great young man, and I'm proud of him. And he's got a big future and all this. Super sharp. All your kids are so sharp. Your daughter that I met the day in San Antonio reminds me so much of my 24-year-old. I mean, they looked alike. They acted alike.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
She's
so,
ball. She got her MBA, and Hampton's older brother, he's the second. He is a dentist. And then I have 2 in engineering school, which you have. One over there doing engineering at Auburn at the same school. They're going to have to meet. And then another one that doesn't have a declared major yet. And then I'm homeschooling still one.
So now you homeschooled all of your kids, right?
I did. Yes.
How? No, first of all, let me back up because we homeschool too. And people think it's an impossible task. Here you are, and I'll paint a picture. You are successful. You are busy. You have all of these things going on the creative side. You're gifted as a chef, and just all of these things that you've done, hosting television shows, writing, these books. And what made you and Scott make the decision to say, yeah, we're not going to do the public school route. We're just not going to go that direction?
Well, earlier I said that I like control, and and so I don't think I could have survived without medication. I don't think I could have survived my kids being in the public education system. And I hate it. I don't know if I should say that.
You could say
I know a lot of
I hate it.
education majors, and
Sure.
I was like, I just was like, I think we got this. So, and my first one went to kindergarten. That was the only schooling that any of my children had. So he went to pre-K, 4-year-old, and it seemed like he had the best little teacher. She was great, but it just wasn't for a little 4-year-old boy to sit still like that all day long. I don't think it's a natural. I don't think it's natural. And so, just looking at nature, looking at personality, looking at the ability for them to absorb so much and learn so much and work with their hands, it just doesn't have a place. I don't think kids have a place, in my opinion, to sit still for 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. It really kind of robs that energy. I've always said, if you give me a kid that's climbing the walls, I'd much rather take that kid over the kid that's sitting over there eating glue, right? Because I can change the world with the wall climber. I can harness that energy, and I feel like the school system, among other things that they do and get wrong, is they steal that energy. We were the same way. We started with the kindergarten thing, and we just said, this is not a route for us. And when you say that, I'll help you here, because I know what you mean when you say I shouldn't say hate. We love educators. We love teachers. We love people who want to mold young minds. Mm-hmm. We love the teachers, but I get it, because it's a system that's even set up to make the teachers, it binds their hands too in a big way. The system does. And so, and now you've got the craziest curriculum being handed down. I mean, I always call it, brainwashing Marxism, that, they're creating these automatons, and they don't think critically anymore. And I've met your kids. I've talked to, your kids. These are critical thinkers. These are kids who know they've got it going on. And so there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, there is. And the education of today in our classrooms is what's going to be the government of tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And whatever that they're feeding our children is going to be what the next generation is going to be like. Unless we get some people that can think and truly want really godliness for our nation. Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, because I don't think that a republic can be run unless it's run in a godly way. I mean, I don't think it was set up to be run in any other way. I don't think you can have socialists cannot run a republic. It just doesn't. It doesn't work.
And I know that faith plays a big part of who you are, how your family operates, and you're grounded in that way. And you look at the country, you look at the state that we're in, and how much emphasis is being placed on politics. I mean, they're important. I understand that. And politics runs downstream from culture. But our culture has become so godless and so, so lacking in terms of foundation. I agree with you on that. Well, how, if you found a way, I always ask this question, and I mean, we're all humans. I don't know that anybody really has the answer. But what's the balance? I mean, do you think there is a balance between family and faith and culture and how we embrace it? Do we withdraw and get away from it, run and hide, or do we actively engage it? What do you think?
My opinion on that is we need Christians everywhere. We need actors. We need, in every aspect, we need ballet dancers, musicians, engineers, lawyers. We need all of it. We need to be everywhere. We cannot take back our nation by sitting idle in one spot and just not having anything to do with anybody else. I don't think that that's that's not making a change in any kind of positive way for the Lord, in my opinion. We've got to be out there, and we've got to raise strong kids to be able to withstand the pressures that come along with standing up for what you believe in.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to engage, and it's really taking over a dominion mindset. I'm really tired of the run and hide mindset. Jesus is going to come and take us out of here, and we're going to escape all of this. I don't think that's the plan. I think, my opinion has been that I think we're supposed to rule and reign, right? And be the ones who dictate. And I say dictate. That word's been. We should be the ones who are determining the direction and the destiny that we're going, instead of being controlled and, as we said, brainwashed by the education system, and everything that we believe is under attack. And the easiest target out there are people who would say that they are of the Christian faith. And that's okay. You can regularly mock and really ridicule Christians, and there's no ramifications for any of that stuff. Exactly. But you can't get away with anything else in doing, No. So, with your kids, and have they have they struggled through that any? I mean, because you guys, I mean, it's easy to pick up a recipe book and you put so much of your life on these pages. It's amazing because this is more than food. All of your books are way more than food. People look at that and they say, oh, well, Scott and Stacey Harris have a great life. It's perfect. You know, they've never had any troubles, any trials, no tribulations whatsoever. I mean, how do you deal with that mindset out there of people thinking that?
Well, to think that anybody that lives on this earth doesn't have any trouble is like that's crazy thinking to begin with. And, you know, yeah, we've had plenty of stuff. And Scott, he owns his own business. And then I own my own business. And so, you know, all of the trouble that comes along with that. You know, the thing that I think we did different than I think a lot of people do, and maybe it was because we homeschooled, is I helped Scott with his business when, you know, and now my son has gone in there and they're working it together. But we had so much trouble, like hiring, firing. I did, you know, a lot of that. The kids were all involved in it. Like we would talk about it at the table and talk about, you know, taxes and talk about everything that pertained to us as adults. We talked about it and made it interesting for the kids and tried to involve them in our decisions and what would you do? How should we handle this? And made them think through how would they handle that kind of situation. And I think that it's prepared them for what, you know, what they've dealt with. In fact, one of my daughters, she's so funny. She said that her boyfriend, she's like, he just trusts everybody. And she was like, I don't know what happened, but none of us trust anybody. And so I don't know how good that was that we shared everything, but it was like, you know, there's not that many people you could trust out there. And, and our kids are real aware of that. And I don't know if that was good or bad, but
I think it's fantastic. I mean, a healthy skepticism and a little bit of cynicism goes a long way. We're going to talk about food in a minute. I got to tell you, though, I got to do this. We're going to take a little quick break here. So take a deep breath, Stacy. I want to talk to you there because there's a special that's going on with our folks over at My Patriot Supply that I want to tell you about. It's happening for the next couple of weeks. You know, there's a point where your family, your future, you need to make sure it's protected, and you all deserve that protection. So I want everybody listening to the show, I want you to be assured with some self-reliance, and you can get that over at My Patriot Supply. They've helped millions of American families prepare for uncertain future. Many of them start with their 4-week emergency food kits. You've heard me recommend it for years. 16 food and drink varieties, no food boredom in that. Let me tell you, the food is delicious, 2,000 calories a day. So if things go bad, ice storms, snowstorms, tornadoes, power outages, anything, the world goes crazy, zombie land happens, whatever, at least you can feed yourself and your family. And those meals are sealed inside the durable packaging, which in the right storage can last up to 25 years. I want you to stock up on all your food kits that your family needs, and every member of your family needs a food kit. You can go to my special website, preparewithchad.com, and right now each 4-week food kit is $60 off plus free shipping. It'll show up discreet, and anytime you place an order before 3 p.m., it'll ship out the same day. So protect yourself, protect your family, protect your people. Go to preparewithchad.com. Stacy, you know, This is not My Patriot Supply in this book, okay? Like this was food that won't store for 25 years, but this is my kind of food. I love that you called this love language of the South. Now, first of all, you're as country as they come. I think people hear, you know, people always say that I don't have as strong of a Georgia accent as I used to have, and I said, well, I didn't lose it, I just muted it, right? Okay. Because I talk so much, and I was like, I'd hear myself recorded back, and I said, I don't like the way I would drop my R's really bad, and I didn't like all that stuff. But when I get around, my girlfriend was telling me yesterday, she said when Chad gets around certain people, I don't even understand what he's saying anymore because the Southern accent comes out. And of course, the people online love to point out the fact that I was born in New Jersey, and but I didn't live there, and but grew up in Georgia. And of course, you're in Alabama. And I love this, the love language of the South. The South Southern culture holds a deep place in my soul. You know, I went to the University of Georgia, went to school in Columbia, South Carolina, bounced around the Southeast a lot. I know it holds a deep place in yours. But when we were talking a second ago about how the Harris household's never been through any troubles, I want to show them this picture right here in the front. Look at all this white privilege. Look at all of this. I mean, this is
Hey,
Stacy.
let me tell you about this. People have said if I do like a design thing, they will say, "Oh, you're just showing off, blah blah blah." But let me just tell you that we built this house for $32 a square foot.
It's amazing
because we got stuff out of the bulletin board. It's this thing that people sell stuff out of. We got brick from old plants. We just scraped the stuff together, and we got rocks from our fireplace from a pond, like a river that, anyway, we got them from a river. And so Scott put down all the floors in the house and about died doing it. And I was 5, I think I was pregnant with my 5th baby. And then I was coming out here with contractors and I was like going, no, that won't work or whatever. And oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. But anyway, but we work hard. We work hard. And we like beauty. And I think that that's all part of this godly road, It's okay.
I've said forever, I've tried to tell people, and I was looking at my phone because I looked up your Instagram. I love your Instagram. I love following you on Facebook.
Thank you.
Because you post the most gorgeous pictures. And with all due respect to Scott, you're part of those gorgeous pictures. And you spruce up. Every now and then he shows up. I get it. You like him. The kids are beautiful, but you post, and everybody needs to follow Stacy Lyn at Stacy Lyn, and Lyn has one N for those of you who are keeping count. Stacy Lyn Harris at Stacy Lyn Harris on Instagram. You want to follow. It's aesthetically pleasing. But what I was going to say is what I've been telling people for years is that God is all about beauty.
He is,
and beauty is all about balance.
Yep.
Balanced things are beautiful things. And so, and for a person with OCD like me, trust me, that's specifically very, very true. I need things to be in balance or I get really frustrated. I don't necessarily like that. But when I look at the pictures that are in your books and on your Instagram and on your social media, I look at these images. And like, here's you, I guess, with the veranda out back. We'll call it a southern veranda.
Yeah.
And this southern veranda, Stacy Lyn and the dog, the German short-haired pointer. I look at this and I go, is this, they live in the most beautiful utopia on the planet. Who knew that something this beautiful was out there in Alabama? But everything, y'all's home, the landscaping, everything, it's beautiful. And so you guys did a fantastic job on that.
Well, thank you.
You call this love language of the South. What does that mean to you, love language of the South?
Well, and most people know that with Southerners, everywhere you go, you have to have food. So you go to church, you better be bringing some food. I mean, Sunday school has to have food. Everything has to have food. And so that's just the love language of the South is food. And we take care of each other through food. We show our love for each other through food, whether it's, somebody has a death in the family or you have a graduation party or you just, show up to somebody's door because they invited you for dinner for food, you bring some food. So there's just food everywhere. It's just the way that we are here. Yeah.
It's funny. I can remember we would go, I guess it was, you'd have those months of the year. You have those months of the year that have a fifth Sunday in them, right?
Yes.
And so at church, you would have the fifth Sunday singing at night, and then everybody would bring a covered dish, and everybody would eat. It was a great time of fellowship at the church, and I used to love that stuff because I used to love eating everybody's food, growing up in Georgia. And you always had those little old ladies that people would say, you always had the ladies you knew maybe didn't cook the stuff so good, or maybe it wasn't the cleanest house coming out of that, and we always just told on them, said, well, okay, she we know that's whose potato salad that is over there. So, you might want to skip her. Yeah, you might want to skip around that a little bit. And I'm being mean, but I loved that because food was the way to your soul. Anybody that knows me well, anybody that travels with me, the guys in the band with me, my crew, the people who know me well, they know certain things. Like, for instance, I have a very strong passion about grits. I love grits.
Me too. Me too. They're so good.
My guitar player, Steve Helms, he said, growing up, did y'all eat grits like every day? Because you love them. And I said, no, I didn't. I said, but I'm always on this search. I have this little diner about a mile from my house that I finally found some really good grits that I don't make. Now, if I'm making them, we're good. We're good if I'm making them. Yes. But, growing up, I would get up. I spent the weekends with my grandparents because my grandmother was a Sunday school teacher, and my parents didn't go to Sunday school. My mother was a church pianist, so she was often practicing, working on things with the choir and stuff, and working on music. So they didn't go to Sunday school, but I wanted to go to Sunday school, so I went with my grandmother. So I'd stay with them on the weekends. And when I was there, my grandfather, if he wanted fried fish for breakfast, he got fried fish.
Yeah.
If he wanted if he wanted fried quail, he got quail. I mean, whatever he wanted is what my grandmother cooked. And she went all out. And at her funeral, at my grandmother's funeral, she was known for her biscuits. And so I did an estimate. This has probably been, gosh, we're going on a number of years now. But when I spoke at her funeral, I had done an estimate, and I think it was a pretty educated guess on how many biscuits she probably made in her entire life, because everybody wanted her to bring the biscuits.
Yes.
And so she brought them to functions, funerals, weddings, you name it. And so my estimate was on the safe side conservatively. She made at least 1 million biscuits in her life. I was just counting the pans of how different times, because it was so consistent. You were kind of able to add up over the years. And so that's a lot of biscuits. And I was like, at Christmas time, my grandfather had a candy that he made. Actually, my grandmother made it. He just stood around and kind of oversaw it and took the credit for it. And people every year would bring him back the candy tins because they wanted to get that again next year. They wanted the candy. Oh my gosh,
that's great. Fill this up for me, please.
Yeah. That's what, when I see this title, that's the kind of thing I think about.
And that's what you're going to get, because like my grandmother's recipes, her favorite recipes are in here. My favorite recipes that she made, like homemade soup and fried cornbread, which is to die for. And it's only like 4 ingredients. Yeah. It's super easy to make and it's delicious. And then you've got fried chicken. But there's also some healthy stuff, for like in the farmer's market section. I have a farmer's market section in there that, it's got like a really delicious salad, with the croutons that, the garlicky croutons and all that, just delicious things from what I grew up within the from the farmer's market. Or I talk about meeting my husband and we would have eating contests and anyway, barbecue chicken and all of the stuff that you would have for your holidays, from potlucks, that you were just talking about, kind of, or the fifth Sunday kind of foods. You've got your potlucks and so your stews and every kind of thing that you could ever want for any occasion is in this book. And actually at the end of the book, I have a menu plan for just staying in with your family, just a Valentine's dinner for 2. I mean, you name it, it's in there. And it's what we would do. Graduations, celebrations, stuff for weddings. I mean, it's all in there. So, and how we do weddings, why we celebrate, are celebrations important? Those kinds of things. I mean, it's all in here. And I've got all kinds of stories about growing up here in the South. Some are funny, some are sad.
Hey guys, for 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And when I say the only one, trust me, they are the only one. And Patriot Mobile has been a great supporter of this show, and I'm proud to continue partnering with them. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, and they give you access to all 3 major networks, which means you're going to get the same dependable coverage that you're accustomed to without funding leftist causes. See, when you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're sending a message. You're saying that you support free speech, religious liberty, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment, our first responder, and our military heroes. And they have a 100% US-based customer service team, which is going to make switching so easy. You can keep your number, keep your phone. Call them up. They'll help you upgrade with a brand new phone. Whatever you need, their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. You go to patriotmobile.com/Chad. You can call them on the phone if you want to, 972-PATRIOT. Talk to them. And you get free activation when you use promo code CHAD. I spell it Chad. That's right. Join me. Make the switch today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Chad. That's patriotmobile.com/Chad. Use promo code Chad. Call them up, 972-PATRIOT.
Well, they're great. I know you start off, and we'll talk about this a little bit. You start off talking about how Granny influenced you.
Yes.
And then, you toss some recipes into the thing, but really this is a story book.
It is.
And I was talking to my friend, he's a historian in Alabama. He's not Southern, but he got to the South as quick as he could, but he's a college professor and a historian, Southern historian. Let me be very specific. He focused on Southern history. Brian McClanahan. Brian McClanahan is a professor there. He's a good friend. He's written a lot of books about the South. He's very much an apologist for the South. He's very defensive of the South. And having come from up north, specifically Maryland, he's an interesting anomaly. But I was talking to him recently about how Southern culture, it kind of gets demonized these days.
They're taking everything down. I went to a school called Jeff Davis, and now it's called something like, I don't even know, but not Jeff Davis and Robert E. Lee and all the monuments, they're gone. And it's like they're replacing it with, stuff for Black History Month and, any kind of thing like that. And I'm like, I'm fine with them having that. That's history, too. But why do we have to eradicate, the history that we also know? They're both history. Both of them are there. Let's.
And valuable. There's stories that need to be told and stories that need to be learned from. But oftentimes these things happen because these figures from particularly Southern history the stories have been, they've been told wrong or they've been revised in such a way that history is not even correct. And again, we understand that the Union, the Northern armies won the Civil War, so therefore they got to tell the stories. And so a lot of that revisionist history has happened. So that's another thing that I think is significant. And I don't know if you've thought about this. You probably have. This is significant to me in terms of what you do, and that is you help preserve not only a culture but a history that's there. Because when you talk about Hoppin' John and fried cornbread and things like that, this is stuff that in Granny, I mean, this goes back generations, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is stuff that's been passed down to you. How did you? Well, I don't know. The simplest terms is how'd you start cooking? How did this become a passion for you?
Well, I started baking because I like sweets. So that was the first thing. But then just seeing my grandmother's, how she cooked and kind of lived off of the land and all of that, I wanted to kind of repeat that. And my husband hunts. So that's really how I started cooking, because he was making the food and, that from his hunts, and I just didn't love it. And so I wanted to try to make it better. And so I started learning how to make it. And I pretty much for a month, I just cooked wild game, pretty much venison, because I had to figure out how to make this, because he was going to hunt. I mean, it was like that. Yeah. So that's kind of what started all of that. And then as time went on, we had gardens, and then I learned more from my grandmother. And, before she died, I kind of had her recipes down. And then I decided, it's time to write them and time to encourage people out there to cook for their families. This is a creative outlet, something that can be passed down through the generations. So it's just a generational kind of thing. And we need to have passion for these things and passion to feed our families really good food. And it does preserve history. And it keeps memory alive. And I think about my grandmother. I think about my dad. I mean, he's still alive, but I think about him being over there and eating certain things and, just the stories that go along with the food, in our lives. And people remember certain things. Like for me, my granny's soup may not be the best in the world. I think it is. I really do. Deep down, I really believe it is. But then my kids are like, yeah, it's good. It's real good. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's perfect. It's great, isn't it? But it's partly because of her. I'm sure that I feel her presence when I'm making her soup and eating her soup. And I'm like, Granny wouldn't have done it like this. And, and she used a pressure cooker. And so it's like, I got a pressure cooker and I just do all the same stuff. And
that's funny that you say that, because you don't make me cry. At 51, my estrogen levels are too high for this conversation. I'll start crying thinking about grandma's cooking. Yeah. So you talking about that reminds me of so many things that my great grandmother made that is just kind of lost to history. Nobody will ever know, or nobody will ever do certain things the way she did them. And the same with my grandmother that I referenced earlier. Are you one of those people that, because I know you have to do it, if you're doing a recipe book, a book with recipes, you have to put the measurements and things like that in there. Do you do that? CJ and I were cooking something the other night, and I know what a third a cup of water looks like. Yeah. I can put it, I know what it looks like. Yeah.
Or a tablespoon
and I can do that.
Salt. Yeah.
Right. I know. And she's got the measuring cups out, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you? She's like, because I want to get it right. And I'm like, get it right. You know when it's right.
Food, I never get out the stuff. But now for baking, yes. Because it does need to be precise. But for regular food, I hardly ever do. It's just you as you cook, it's just instinct. I think maybe if you're first starting out, then yes. And people want the measurements, and they're like, where are the measurements? Where are my instructions? I mean, they really want it. So I give it to them, but it's kind of becomes instinctual. And to me, when I'm doing videos, I want people to see what I'm doing, and I want them to feel it and not necessarily have to get out measuring tools, because who's going to have time for that? You come home from work and I'm going to get all of the measuring tools out and get all of the right equipment and wash about 100 different dishes. And so nobody is actually going to do that. And I'm here wanting to encourage people to do it. So if I'm going to encourage that, I need to teach them how to do it without looking at a book, even though I want you to read my book. And and that's part of why I tell the stories and everything. And I want you to have some kind of idea about the recipe and the measurements. But then I want you to go in there and I want you to make your version of that.
Yeah. I love that. And I'll tell you, every time I get a book and I look at one of yours, you don't know this about me, but I won a chili cook-off in Scottsboro, Alabama, two years in a row out of 48 entries. 2 years in a row up in Scottsboro, Alabama. I won 2 years in a row. I don't have any ribbons or trophies, but I won, and I still think I make a pretty good chili. So the first thing I do when I get this book is I look in the index and I say, okay, is there a chili in here? And you have one.
I do.
And I noticed that you put, I want to say it's on page 171, if I remember right. Let's see how good my memory is.
Oh, gosh.
It's on 172. It's on 173.
That's where your son gets all of the mathematical. You have it.
Don't know about that. Yeah. I got a memory, but I don't know about that. But I'm telling you, just to prove the point, I know where the chili is. I could find the chili.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that you in a reference back to Scott hunting, you put venison in this.
I did. And Theodore Roosevelt would not eat it without venison.
Say that again. Who wouldn't?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh, is that right? Mm-hmm. No kidding.
He had to have venison in his chili.
I like that guy. Now, these are fighting words I'm about to say.
Beans?
Not between me. In Texas, they don't want the beans. I want the beans.
Yeah.
I believe in beans. I'm pro bean.
Me too. But I'm also pro lots and lots of meat. So I'm also pro that. So I have 6 pounds of meat, I think, in that recipe. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, there's I'm going to tell folks this. You got 3 pounds of ground beef.
Okay.
You have 3 pounds of, that's a lot of meat. You got 3 pounds of venison, stew meat, and you've got in here, or the beef chuck, but that's cheating. Use the venison. Go kill something and use that. Then you got the chopped. Yeah, you got the chopped bacon, which, as far as I'm concerned, you got pig, beef, and deer. That's all the food groups.
There you go.
And so I was looking at this thing and I was like, this looks really good. When you start getting into chili powder and cumin and oregano, I'm like, I'm in. I'm down with this. And then I like that you throw in a little brown sugar.
Yes.
And you use the yellow corn muffin mix.
I do, but you could use any cornmeal.
It's good though. I think this is great.
And what that does is it thickens it and it gives it this really good earthy flavor that you really can't get without it. So you can eat the chili without putting any of that in it, but it's just a little bit, and it changes it. It's just so good.
You and again, another pretty picture. You got, we can probably zoom in on that a little bit, but I mean that's the chili there. It looks good. A beautiful picture of it too, and you got the sweet tea there in the mason jar. I only drink out of mason jars. I mean, that's the truth. You go to my cabinet, there's nothing but mason jars in there. Mason jars and solo cups. That's all I use.
Yeah.
But you've got Stacy Lyn's notes in here and all the kind of stuff. It's just really, it's a cool thing. Now, I go back to this idea of Southern hospitality, and you're chapter 2 in here. That's what it's called, Southern hospitality. I'm telling you, you don't know. But
it's been a while since I wrote it. It takes so long to get these things published.
It does. And this is, by the way, for those of you listening to the show or watching the show, I think you've got 3 more weeks before it's available to the general public, right?
But if you pre-order it, you can get, there's a couple of things that didn't make it in, and I wrote a PDF with that. And so you will get a free downloadable PDF if you pre-order it. And, pre-orders are pretty important, so that it gets, all of the all the bookstores and stuff pick it up.
The bookstores, the ratings, the rankings, all of that stuff, it matters. And listen, as someone who's written books himself, I always tell people it's important, just like your son running for Congress, the grassroots movement is important with things like books, because it tells the powers that be out there, hey, these are our values. We're showing you our values with our dollars. Yes. And so that's why it's so important that people invest in voices like yours.
Yes. Because
it tells the world, says that we're still here. You may tear down our statues and you may hate our culture, but we're still here. We're still a part of this world. So, it's important that folks do that. I want to tell you, though, about our sponsor, United Patriot Coin. If you follow me on social media at all, United Patriot Coin's been a good friend of mine for a long, long time. They are who I trust for gold and silver. A lot of times people in their hard economic times are trying to figure out, this, economic uncertainty that we're living in with all these weird things that are going on in our world. What do you do? Well, I always advise people, you need to have some gold and silver. And I know there are people out there who say, well, you can't eat gold and silver. Trust me, you need some gold and silver on hand. You need some bullion, you need some coins, you need some stuff you can barter with. There's various things you can use to do that with, but some gold and silver would be a good thing to have on hand. So the folks that I trust, UnitedPatriotCoin.com, head over there. You can call them on the phone as well. Talk to Trey on the phone. Tell him Chad sent you, and he'll walk you through all kind of investment opportunities that are out there. So check them out. Southern hospitality. I've always joked about it, because I've traveled all over the world and I'm all over the country every year. And when I go to the Midwest, I don't like doing comedy shows in Indiana. I love the people of Indiana, but I give them a hard time. I say, it's hard to do those shows here because you guys don't understand sarcasm. You're so, whatever is said, you take that at face value. Y'all are a bunch of weirdos. And then, then you go up to the Northeast. They don't understand what's coming out of my mouth. And so it's the different parts of the world are just so funny. But I've joked about it, having spent a lot of time in places like Nigeria, Southeast Asia. I've often said that redneck is everywhere, right? Everybody's got their version of redneck, that duct tape culture, right? But I've joked about Southern hospitality, and I've said, we're really nice to you, but we don't mean it. we were just taught to say those things. To be gracious, to sound hospitable, the yes ma'ams. We don't mean any of those thank yous. We're just kidding with you.
We're just kidding.
What is that? What is that?
Oh, well, thank you. It might be one of those kinds of thank yous.
Yeah. And I always say, to prove the point, I say, how many times has somebody said, bless your heart?
Oh, bless your heart. And I have a chapter called Southern Women. And the big thing to me in that is a Southern woman she's as sweet as tea until she's not. And when she's not, she's like a lion. I mean, a tiger, whatever, protecting her cubs, whatever. Don't say anything about her children. It's a different world out there. But the thing that I do in this book with the Southern hospitality, to me, it isn't entertaining. People talk about it being entertaining, and you invite people over and you have there's a lot of people that do that. But hospitality is really the basis of it is hospital, and it's taking care of the needs of the people around you. It's sitting around the table, letting people leave their baggage, physical or mental, at the door, coming in and getting served food, refreshments, drink, and a nice conversation, somebody to listen to you, somebody to give you feedback. It is like therapy. And that is what, to me, hospitality is all about. And when I had little kids, I would feel real guilty because, you're supposed to be hospitable according to scripture. And I'm like, I'm not being very hospitable right now. And I don't feel like having a lot of company over. I've got 5 kids under whatever. And I had a lady say, you're being hospitable all day long. You are caring for the needs of your children all day long. And that's the truth. I mean, there's different seasons for different types of hospitality. So I hope that I get that across in the book.
Yeah, I think you do an excellent job of it. Did you happen to see the commercial, the He Gets Us commercial during the Super Bowl about the foot washing? Did you catch that commercial at all? Did you see it?
But I don't. Tell me more about that.
So there was a little. Yeah, and there was some controversy over it because the He Gets Us, talking about Jesus, the organization spent $14 million on 2 different commercials during the Super Bowl. You talk about feeding the hungry; they could have fed a lot of people with that, but they totally missed what the purpose of foot washing was with this commercial. As we know in John 17, when Jesus at his final supper with his disciples, it says that he took his robe off and he kind of did what the servant did.
Right.
Something that none of the disciples had done it. I mean, just hours before that, they'd all been arguing about who was going to sit in the place of authority at Jesus' right hand.
Yes.
And so they were all puffed up with pride of who was the best one. And Jesus said, okay, I'm going to show you how my kingdom works. I'm going to take off the robe and I'm going to take on the servant's role and wash your feet. Peter said, you're not going to wash my feet. He said, well, if I don't wash your feet, then you don't have any part of me. And then he said, well, then wash my hands and my head too. And Jesus said, no, you don't need all that. I'm proving a point that the way the kingdom works is the servant, the one, as you described hospitality, that is the one in the kingdom hierarchy who actually has the greatness. And so Jesus was now this commercial went so far as to basically, in an essence, what it was trying to say through a series of images is that it's the power people of our culture need to be taking care of, washing the feet and serving the marginalized people out there. But there's no call for repentance. There was no call. So, you've got an image of a priest washing the feet of a clearly homosexual transvestite in this thing. And so in essence, it was saying, Jesus understands you how you are, but he doesn't expect you to change. Okay. So that was the controversy around the commercial. And so, but you talk about that's why I bring it up, because the foot washing and just the servant mentality in the kingdom of God is something that I think is what we mean when we talk about hospitality and service, and that's kind of largely lost. Everybody wants to, the thing that I think is beautiful about what you do, Stacy Lyn, is you remind us that these things that we should value, that they're not dead yet. They're still there. We live in a DoorDash generation,
Yes.
a microwave generation.
Yes.
Everything is for instant gratification, fast food. Where's the love in that, right? There's not. I don't want to. I know that if I go through a McDonald's drive-through, the person handed me the sack outside of that window, they did not prepare that with love.
Yes.
They didn't put thought into that. They just slapped some form of meat on a bun and squirted some Thousand Island dressing on it and threw another bun on top of it, and that was it. So what you did here is you definitely got that across, and you said, and it says you got the Southerners' arsenal in here.
Yes.
Which is, as you said, it's an array of resources available for certain purposes. You said the Southern pantry, refrigerator, and freezer are always full of resources: sweet tea, icebox cookies, cakes, casseroles, ready for the purpose of, at the top of a hat, gracious hospitality. The Southern arsenal is consistently evaluated, improved upon, and truly central to the Southern home. Man, that's a lost thing, huh? I mean, that people don't really think about that anymore, do they?
And it's not really all that difficult to do. And you will have people at some point stop by. And, not that you have to have something for them, because you don't, but it is always nice to be able to go get out of the freezer some chocolate chip cookies and slice and bake, and put them, and you could just do the slice and bake. I mean, that's still fine, but these are really special because they have pretzels in them and Heath bar. But anyway, but you put them on to your, the sheet pan in 10 minutes. You've got what you need, and you always have tea. That's just a thing. So, so that's always there. But just to be able to be kind of a little prepared, and my dad was a Marine, so, they're always prepared. But you just do that. But I think within that area, I talk about also, which is kind of a funny story, but the side door friends. And I personally, at our home, I like my front door. My side door is always a mess. I have trash. I put if it's raining, I'll put my trash bag outside, just right outside the door. There's no telling what people are going to find when they come to my side door. And inevitably they drive around back to get to my side door. And I'm thinking, but I've started to realize those people feel like that they are my side door friends, and that I should be very thankful and happy that they're seeing my trash and all my ugliness, and that they still love me anyway. And that's just part of being genuine. And that is what I'm trying to do in this book, is be genuine, but give people really great stuff. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And there's two things that reminds me of. There's two symbols. If you're reading scripture, there's two places where God really interacted with his people. One was on a mountain, and another was around a table. Both were places of sort of covenant making. And the idea of sitting with your family now at a table, we don't do that anymore, do we? I mean, I know people that don't have a single table in their house. And I know that life is busy, but man, isn't it great to sit around the table with people?
Yeah. Yeah. People don't.
I mean, just to be able to look at them face to face and.
Yeah. It's amazing how people do not spend any time with their families at the table. And one of the things about homeschooling, we always would try, we would forget from time to time, but to share one event or one thing we learned, in the day that we don't think anybody else would know. And by the end of the year, you have 365 new facts. And so much is shared at the table. Anybody that had a problem or something that they were dealing with. And so you learn about life at the table, and people don't have that anymore. And so there's none of this intergenerational relationships. And it's always like everybody's segregated into, here's the adults, here's the children, here's the elderly adults, here's everybody has these categories, and nobody can learn from each other and know what's actually happening in society. Our elementary kids have a lot to say, and they have a lot. They know about the culture more than we do, maybe sometimes. Not, I guess, maybe not if they're homeschooled, but if they're at school, and you need to hear about what's happening so that you can you can relate to your children, because then by the time they're in junior high, you don't know them anymore.
That's true, and they're trying not to know you, and that's hard. That reminds me that they've done studies about why, like our founding fathers were young men. They were in their early 20s, most of them. They were very young, and they've done studies as to why sociologically these men were so smart and brilliant, such incredible statesmen. And they said, men like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin spent the majority of their childhood around the adults in their life.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that gave them the perspective that it did. And when you sit around that table, now we got the kiddie table over here. And, and I get it, adults need their time too. I'm not saying that, but that ability to sit there face to face and interact, that's one of the things that the ancient Jews used to do, is when the family was going to make a decision, they would get the input from the entire family, and they would always start with the youngest child first to get their opinion. And the reason they wanted the youngest is because they knew if the oldest went first, the younger ones would usually take the opinion of the older one because they looked up to them.
That's interesting.
And so it's to have that place of comfort and that system in place in your home. And that's another thing, when you have the table, when God talks about, the table, the Lord sat down with his disciples at the Last Supper, just various examples throughout the scripture.
That's true.
That whenever people are face to face, like the Ark of the Covenant had on top of it had two angels face to face, and the glory of God would settle between those two faces. Mm-hmm. There's something that happens when face to face, like a husband and wife. When a husband and wife are face to face, there's a covenant that's happening there. There's a glory that comes between them. I think that happens around the table. I think that happens when you're sharing a meal. I think it's with your family. I think it's a covenant thing, and we're in such a rush these days that we just lose all of that stuff. So I think this is more than fried chicken. This is the glory of God we're talking about, Stacy.
It is. And the tradition, a lot of times I haven't always been like, do we have to do this? Because, just because they've always done it in the past doesn't mean we have to do it. But there's something to be said about tradition, and going to your grandparents' house on Sundays. You that's a standing thing. You're going to see all of your people then. And that's the place that you can be free to be you, to say what you want to say, to bounce ideas off of people. It's almost like a therapy session that you can count on. And I think it's important to keep those traditions, no matter how, maybe, you might not feel good that day or whatever, but to try to keep those traditions. And I didn't feel that way necessarily several years ago, but now I have a grandbaby, and I see the importance of seeing my grandbaby. But I see the importance of having all of the kids here all, together, to maintain their relationships with each other, because you never know when you're going to need some counsel. You might not for a year, but at some point you might, and you need to keep the relationships, nice and close.
Right. And that's a place to do it. I want to bring up one thing before I let you go. And it's been so good to catch up with you. I enjoy this so much. I want to be one of those side door friends. I want to be one of those people that just stop by, as you said. People that stop by. I want you to make cookies. I want to come hang out with you and Scott. I want to go hunting with Scott and see what we can kill.
Love that. Love it.
That's funny. I love it. And somebody asked me the other day, I guess it's been about a week ago, somebody walked up to me and they said, "Are you familiar with a thing called Alabama white sauce?"
Yes.
And I said, "Boy, stop." I said, "What? Am I familiar with it?" I said, it's a religion. It's in the book. And you got it in here. And I'm anxious to try this Alabama white sauce. I've never tried to make it myself.
It's so easy. You're going to love it.
I just knew other people who had it, so I always went with that. But I've never. It's page 189. I looked in the index. I cheated on that one. I couldn't remember that one. I thought I had it dog-eared.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, getting that picture. Oh, it was the hottest July day. It was July the 31st because it was my daughter's birthday. It was so hot. And Scott helped me to get those pictures. And I had the whole family, my daughter-in-law, she was out there making making stuff, and we did the Lane cake that day. We did the watermelon tea that day. And so that was some kind of day. But we smoked those ribs. Or is that the
Yeah, this was the chicken. You did the smoked chicken. It looks delicious. Smoked chicken. I've always said that a chicken is just a rat with a good reputation because they're such nasty creatures. But I love chicken. I mean, I grew up with chickens. I used to clean chickens. I used to work at a chicken place. I love chickens.
Why you know what you know.
I know about chickens. And so I make a pretty good chicken myself in different ways. The very first recipe in this book is fried chicken, which I'll confess I'm good at certain ways of doing chicken. I am not great at fried chicken. I just have never been good at it. So I'm going to need you to teach me.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to try it.
Yeah. And there's some really great cakes in there, all of the great Southern cakes, and a carrot cake. There's a Lane cake. And the very last chapter is banana pudding, something to fight about in the South. And it's a big problem.
Yeah.
Do you like meringue? I have to ask you this. Do you like meringue or do you like whipped cream? For your
I like meringue. I like meringue better than whipped cream. I'm not opposed to either one of them, but I'm not a huge whipped cream person. If somebody whips the cream, I don't like the Cool Whip stuff. I don't care for that. You know what I'm saying? There's a big difference, I think, in that.
Yes. So,
which do you prefer?
Well, my husband and I disagree on this greatly, and he thinks I'm completely wrong. But I like the whipped cream. He's a big meringue person, and so we have it's about half and half. We've had very long discussions at the table about this. So, and why one would be better than the other. And we're big on this, our critique. We are food critics for sure. So
I had and that's a beautiful banana pudding. It really is. That is too pretty to eat. I had an English teacher in high school who used to tell a joke about meringue. She said, how is my left hand like a lemon pie? She said, because it has meringue on it. So instead of my ring, it was a good Southern, got meringue on it.
I tried at one time to get rid of my accent. And you're doing how you've done, and it was not a pretty sight. I tried it for one day, and I was talking slow and ridiculous, trying to change my accent. I'm like, I can't do this. This is it.
No.
This is me. This is what you get.
Don't you ever try to change it. It is ingrained in your DNA, and it is lovely. Don't you ever try to change it. Stacy Lyn, I'm proud of you. I'm proud to call you my friend, and I'm thankful for you. You got some great endorsements on the book as well. My buddy Craig Morgan has a sweet endorsement on the back of it, and it's just really, really cool. I mean, thank you, first of all, for sending me the book and staying connected the way you have over the years, and I just really appreciate you so much. And what's the best way for people to get, well, I know follow you on the socials, Stacy Lyn Harris. As I said, Lyn only has one N. Yeah, follow Stacy Lyn Harris on all the socials and get the book. It's going to come out. You can pre-order it now. It is Love Language of the South. And I don't know how you guys stay so skinny. I really don't. I gained 6 pounds looking at this book, just reading through it. So a celebration of the food and the hospitality and the stories of my Southern home. I appreciate you. Stacy Lyn Harris. Thank you, girl. I love you so much. Give my love to Scott, all the kids, and praying for you every day. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, guys, I want to encourage you, please go to where podcasts are offered, leave us a rating and review, and pick up Stacy Lyn's book. You're going to love it. And go back in several books. You're going to want to get all of her books. They're all just as beautiful as this one. So Make sure you grab them. And don't forget, I'm out on the road. I will be in Coleman, Texas this weekend. I'm in Cushing, Oklahoma next week. We just added shows in Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa. So stay tuned at watchchad.com. It's where all the fun stuff is. Lots of stuff that's happening out there. And just know that we appreciate you. Thank you for watching. I love you. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.